I'm Father Stephen Allen. I'm the pastor of St. Irene Greek Orthodox Church in Rochester Hills, Michigan. We're a parish of the American Metropolis, of the North American Eparchy, of the Church of the Genuine Orthodox Christians of Greece.
That's the old calendar?
Yeah, our nickname is the Old Calendarus. But to put it more precisely, we are the canonical Church of Greece in continuation from the historical Church of Greece from before 1924 when the calendar was changed, that have retained apostolic succession and a canonical order in our church, true holy mysteries, and based on the true confession of faith. We don't accept the modern heresies of ecumenism and modernism. And so we have the legitimate claim to being the continuation of the organic Church of Greece from the apostolic generation.
What are your plans for this program?
Our plan for the program is to introduce Orthodoxy to our own Orthodox people. You know, so many of our Orthodox faithful ask us to make videos. And to be honest, I've been resistant to making videos. It's not my normal métier. But I realize that it is important, and we want to make a short series of videos for our own faithful, first of all, and then for Orthodox people in general, and then even for non-Orthodox, all men of goodwill who want to learn about our faith. I'd like to call the series 70 times 7, because our Lord's words to St. Peter asked him, how often should I forgive my brother? And our Lord, to emphasize that we should never stop forgiving, is to use the scriptural terminology of 70 times 7, which obviously doesn't literally mean 490 times, or whatever that is. See, I don't even know the math. But signifies an indefinite or limitless number of times. So the Orthodox faith is really limitless because it's of divine origin. And there are many, many proofs and demonstrations and evidences that the Orthodox faith is of divine origin.
So the program will
I've broken it down to 7 topic areas. And within those 7 topic areas, there's a great deal we can talk about. We need to talk about the creed, or the dogmas of the church, the basic doctrines of the church.
Or the idea of dogma? You're going to list all the dogmas?
We're going to start with the idea of dogma. That'll be one of our first videos.
And
The idea of dogma itself, which modern people often have a problem with, right? Contemporary people often object to dogma. I don't want to be dogmatic. Of course, they're very dogmatic about being non-dogmatic. They're very absolute about being relative. But to start with the very concept of dogma and why the church has dogmas, dogmata, and that having dogma is actually very liberating, because it means every human being doesn't have to reinvent the wheel and create his own life, which sounds liberating to people who are foolish, but it's actually to people who are wise. They realize that's a terrible burden, right? But I'm not God.
Right.
I can't create my own life. And so what dogma does, once I've accepted the authority, once I trust my mother, the church, once I trust the Holy Fathers, who are loving and wise saints who want to help me, that it's actually liberating, it's actually freeing, that I don't have to reinvent the whole meaning of my life. I accept the church's teachings. I don't accept the church's teachings in an uninformed way. I can ask questions. I should ask questions. God created our reason, right? So we should ask questions. But my basic disposition is to trust the church and to realize that she is this repository of wisdom, and that I can't possibly reproduce or create something better than what the church has to offer. So dogma is actually very, very liberating.
so it's the concept of dogma.
The very concept of dogma and why the church has dogmas.
And
And then we're also going to talk about worship and the holy mysteries, or the sacraments of the church, the sacramental life of the church. Because obviously the Orthodox Church is the most liturgical and most sacramental of all forms of Christianity. Also about morality, and especially so-called contemporary hot button issues. Such as obviously marriage, sexual identity, abortion, contraception, the whole gamut of contemporary concerns that people have about moral life. We're going to talk about prayer and spiritual life, which is really the heart of our faith. The sacraments, the sacramental life and the prayer life are really the heart of our faith. Most of us priests would rather talk about those things all the time, right?
we're a liturgical
Worship, liturgy, and also prayer, learning the prayer of the heart, which is characteristic of Orthodoxy, but the whole life of prayer and the spiritual life. And that's going to lead us also to talking about monasticism. And it really is one of the signs of the Orthodox Church is the true church, as the Orthodox Church has preserved the true monasticism, which is really the you might say the beating heart of the church. And we'll talk about that and why that's so.
Okay.
We're also going to talk about family life in general. Of course, that's going to be affected, or that topic is affected by the moral questions in general. But also just positive recommendations, exhortations, suggestions for family life about how husband and wife should treat each other, how they should raise their children, educating their children, order in the home, how to create an Orthodox atmosphere in the home, and all these things. We can't just tell people, don't do this, don't do that. This is a sin, that's a sin, although we need to do that. But we can't only do that, we also have to give them positive tools how to create this Orthodox atmosphere in the home.
And I see in your next subject that's listed in your outline, history and current events.
History and current events.
That also seems to overlap with
Of course. History and current events.
hot button issues.
Yes, it does. But then it's another angle on it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of getting obsessed with hot button issues, we need to take the long view. That the Orthodox Church,
Explain that.
the Orthodox Church is as old as creation. It goes back to paradise. Right? Some of the fathers say it goes back to the angelic eons before the beginning of the world. Right? So the Orthodox Church has the long view from the beginning to the very end, to the second coming of Christ. And we need to acquire a prism or a lens, an Orthodox vision of history and of the world, so that we're not thrown off balance, we're not stampeded by current obsessions or current worries.
It's hard to see this very long parade that you're standing and watching only a small section of it.
Exactly.
Not realizing what came before.
Right. We
and
need
what's-
to give people an Orthodox lens. Some of our viewers will know that I do a series called Orthodox Survival Course. It's been very popular. It's an audio series, not a video series. And people love it because it's helping them acquire an Orthodox sense of the movement of history.
Well, compare this program you're starting now to your Orthodox Survival Series.
Orthodox Survival Series would be an example of taking this one topic of history and current events and expanding it into a meaty course. I've given 27 lectures that are almost an hour each, around an hour long.
So you could say that this might be a condensed version of the Orthodox Survival
To
Course?
some extent it will be, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And the last topic you had?
The last topic is the current church situation. For those who are already Orthodox or thinking of becoming Orthodox, to know how to choose from the bewildering array of Orthodox jurisdictions that claim legitimacy.
So you'll get into some current ecclesiastical politics.
To explain this term politics, often politics is used dismissively. And we have to explain how policy, the Greek word politiki, simply means policy.
Right.
Policy means our program for action.
Right.
So if your program for action isn't orthodox, then you're a hypocrite. And you're denying the faith. So what is your politic? What is your politiki? What is your policy of your church? Who are your bishops? Do they confess the faith?
And would you have, are you open to the idea of people sending questions into the
Yes,
comments?
I wanted to say that I'd be happy to answer questions. We could make
Suggested topics.
we could
programs.
make, sure, and I love that because I want to know what people need to know. And we
Or
can,
what they want to know.
what-
It's not the same.
well, that's true. What they need to know and want to know is often two different things.
Okay.
There's some things we don't need to know.
Okay.
So I invite people to join in this process. We're just creating this, and I'd like to think that together with our faithful, or with men of goodwill, we're creating this together for the edification of the faithful.
All right, very good, Father Stephen. I think everyone's looking forward to seeing this series.
With God's help.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen.